G'day everyone. In November 2018, the Queensland branch of the AEVA held the EV Expo at the Brisbane Convention Centre. This displayed a wide range of electric vehicles and had a bunch of presentations from experts in the industry. And this video is just a couple of those experts and what they had to say. If you're interested in coming to the Queensland branch monthly meeting, it's on the third Wednesday of each month at 7:30 at the Albion Peace Centre. I hope you enjoy the video and I'll see you on the next one.
Hydrogen fuel cell vehicles here, so we've gone to the US to do a bit of a comparison, and essentially the main thing I want to point out here is that in that second last row you can see that the last column is battery electric vehicles. So we all know that the capital cost of these vehicles at the moment is much higher than comparable internal combustion engine vehicles. So we're looking here at a Hyundai Ioniq versus a Toyota Corolla, and you've got about a 43% premium. But after you take into account the much lower operating costs, you actually see that difference drops significantly. So based on around 15,000 kilometres a year, you can get that down to 13%. And we know if you can get that up around 20 to 25,000 kilometres a year, you're almost on price parity. So even based on those higher upfront costs at the moment, these vehicles on a total cost of ownership basis are starting to become competitive. It's all about finding those fit-for-purpose avenues for where it makes sense now. And of course, we know over time those upfront prices will continue to fall as battery prices fall, and that total cost of ownership will only become even more convincing. And this doesn't just apply to passenger vehicles, like we saw before from Tony in terms of commercial vehicles. There's a lot of evidence to suggest that in that segment, the transition will actually be much quicker because of that total cost of ownership advantage. How are we going for time? Pretty close. I think we already, from the presentations this morning, have a pretty good idea in terms of where the market is, but overall I just wanted to include this slide to really emphasise the point that the market is accelerating overseas, and whilst we are a little bit behind here in Australia, I think that with the introduction of a number of new models in 2019, we'll start to see that accelerate. So to finish up, we wanted to touch on policy. So that's obviously always a really important discussion in this space, and getting an understanding of what government can do, working with the private sector to encourage the uptake of EVs. And so essentially we've got a number of different papers that we're working on at UQ, looking at case studies of markets around the world to get an understanding of how these different policies are affecting the electric vehicle market. And essentially we split the policies into those incentives or carrots, and they can be in lots of different categories. You can have your upfront subsidies, you can have behavioural incentives instead of in terms of bus or transit lane access. You can have ongoing subsidies for rego. You've also got sticks though, and really the most important stick in many cases is emissions standards. But you've also got emissions pricing, mandatory recharging and refuelling at certain service stations, and also this really interesting movement towards fossil fuel vehicle bans that we're seeing a number of places introduce over the past few years. Nothing yet for Australia, but watch that space, I think. So finally, there's also the sermons, and we don't want to underestimate how important they are in terms of those information campaigns, getting people to have the experience of an EV through test drives, and also drive electric tourism. All right, so I'm given the 30-second thing. So Where should Australia head next? I think we've had a little bit of a discussion today already on fuel excise, and I think we need to be thinking much broader than just EVs being an issue. We know that the uptake of shared, autonomous and electric vehicles are going to completely change how we choose to get from A to B, but also how we're able to raise road tax revenue. And so we're doing another project at UQ at the moment where we're trying to understand how the impact of shared, autonomous and electric vehicles are going to impact and affect road tax revenue over the coming years, and what we can put in place to address that whilst still incentivising the uptake of these technologies. And so, in summary, I think what we hopefully might see a taste of, based on Tim's presentation this morning, but hopefully next year will be some federal leadership in terms of introducing emission standards, some targets for fleets. There's a number of incentive levers at that federal level in terms of fringe benefits tax, import duty, luxury car tax. You can't underestimate the infrastructure in terms of having that coordinated approach, and also a plan for moving towards a more fair and efficient way of pricing our roads. And I think that one pathway forward in this space could be to exempt EVs from all existing road taxes in exchange for them voluntarily opting into a road pricing scheme. And so in this sense, we can start a mechanism that we can transition towards road pricing for the entire fleet. We are able to address the concerns raised about EVs eroding fuel excise, but if we keep that rate low enough, it can act as an incentive to adopting an EV, and over time ratchet that rate up as there's more EVs into the fleet, to the final point of being an Australia-wide road pricing scheme that covers all vehicles, where hopefully the vast majority of them are electric. All right, thank you.
That's the important conversation, isn't it? Well, what about all the money we're not going to get? In our state, the state government takes tens of millions of dollars out of the road revenue that's generated for general consolidated revenue, so I think there's some room to move here. This is my favourite part of a workshop like this, because you actually get to buy something. We just don't make stuff in Australia anymore. Oh wait, our next speaker is doing exactly that. And that phone call, by the way, was someone buying shares in the other gentleman's company at $2.50 a pop. So hopefully young Greg will actually sell a few vehicles today, ladies and gentlemen. You can see him out in the foyer from ACE Electric Delivery Vans. Please welcome Greg McGarvie.
Now, my name's Greg McGarvie, and just to put you all at ease, I'm a marine biologist. So, and my business partner is a journalist. This venture with the AEVA, Australian Clean Energy Electric Vehicles, started out over 3 years ago. We're building a 150 megawatt solar farm at the moment, and our venture partner, we're sitting down having a bit of a chat, said, we're interested in EV. He said, Greg, I think I might have the bloke you can talk to. And he introduced us to a bloke called Dr. Charles Kung. How many people here have been to Taiwan? Any Taiwanese travellers? Right, well, the high-speed rail runs the length of Taiwan. Charles was the chief engineer for that. He's also manufacturing for Toyota. He, like me, is fairly old. You know, I'm 66, he's 65, and this is our last little project. And he's pulled together a conglomerate of Swiss, German, automotive engineers, technologists, and his own team that's residing in China at the moment are PhD students out of the US. The design for our vehicle, a couple of designers, one's involved with the Tesla Roadster in the design of it. The other, Ernst Tomke, you may have heard of, he did the Swatch and the smart car. And if you have a look at the genetics of our car, you can see a little bit of his influence on that. What we're trying to do in Australia is work in parallel with Charles, which means setting up our own manufacturing plant here. And the only reason we're attracted to it, and I wish I could show you, but I'll tell you about it. The only reason we're attracted to it is because the process for manufacturing is far cheaper than any other current automotive building process. It's also very adaptive, that you can do a model change. And if you've had a look at the skeleton of our car sitting out there, you can see that it's quite different. And in a few years' time, rather than it being assembled out, glued together out of 24 pressure-pressed panels, it'll be printed. Now, with the EV, Charles said, I don't believe you, a marine biologist and a journalist want to start an EV industry up in Australia or start manufacturing. And we said to him, well, Charles, look, we only want $5 million in seed funding to get started, and we'll start assembling. He was a bit doubtful about us, and he said, all right. He flew out to Australia, did his due diligence. No idea.
Make sure you grab one of the tickets, because at the moment there's one more person who's running. And there's a few people that we have to thank. So 10% of our
No, that could cause all sorts of problems. No, if you talk to your AV man, he loaded everything onto his computer. Or media man, whoever it was. Anyway, doesn't matter, does it? We'll battle on. Anyway, Charles came out to Australia. He said, Greg and Will's my business partner, great place, Australia, high vehicle ownership rate, 3 times what we do in Taiwan. So that looks like a good business proposition. And then he said, but even though you might be a marine biologist, or you might be a journalist, and you've got a great idea, I'm not going to put that $5 million on the table for seed funding, because I've done a bit of due diligence. I cannot see any appetite in your government for the auto industry. They've let it go. And so, right. And then he said, and the other thing that's a bit of an issue for me is that I can't see any policy or any move in the government towards EV. He said, sorry. Now, Will doesn't give up easily, and we've negotiated a position now with Charles. We said, OK, well, we will raise our own funding. And what we'll offer you is 15% in our manufacturing plant, plus a percentage of each vehicle sale. And he said, fair enough. If you raise your own funding, as soon as you raise that money, I'll fly out from Taiwan and sit down with that person and go through everything we're doing. Okay, now, I presented this at Sydney last year when we did what we call a soft launch. And a soft launch is when all you've got for your vehicle is pictures. So we had pictures put up. And I said to the audience, and they're a little bit bigger than this audience, about 285 in the audience, I said, who's that? And there's a few volunteers. Anyone got any suggestions who that could be that's holding the EV industry back? Well, there was a proposal that we develop our ute, which you've seen out there, and call it the coal-fired Abbott-mobile, with a couple of budgie smugglers hanging off the mirror. Anyway, now most people, when they think of EV, they think of open roads. And they say, the first thing they say is, Greg, how far does your car go? How fast can I travel in it? I said, well, our car is not going to go very fast. It's designed as a light commercial vehicle for the urban environment. Later on, with our sports car, open road will be for you. But at the moment, our focus is light commercial, utes and vans. And the range of the van and the ute unloaded, 350 kilometres. Fully loaded, 500 kilo plus 3 cubic metres of materials, 175. Purposely, our ute is designed and the van is designed that you take it home at night, plug it in. Your home becomes your petrol station, and it charges slowly overnight, and in the morning, full, ready to go to work. And we argued with Charles, and he said, no, trust me, this is the way to go. Now, ACE is our brand. This is being developed for us by an English company. We were approached by them. I said, we haven't got any money. He said, that's all right. I just want a few shares. And so we've branded as ACE, which is Australian Clean Energy Electric Vehicles, purposely with the kangaroo, because I've just come back from Batumi, which is on the Black Sea near Turkey in Georgia. I was flown over there by the Asia Development Bank. It's strange how we've got people more interested outside the country in what we're doing than people in the country. And they specifically asked me to go over there, speak about a manufacturing process and the fact that we had an Australian branded vehicle. And an Australian brand, as with Tritium, you know that Tritium's not kicking big goals, the Australian brand attracts a premium of about 30% overseas. The Asia Development Bank were interested because we can basically flat pack our vehicle, let's build it here, send it over, a bit like an IKEA pack, and then we can train up their local team to assemble it. Now, really, this opportunity has got a short window. What I think we can all be thankful here today is what Elon Musk has done. With what he's done, doesn't matter what people think about him, he has changed the whole world focus on EV. He's made everyone uncomfortable and step outside their space. And we know that if we can develop this industry in Queensland, that's our focus, it'll generate new jobs, it'll generate new industry. And of course it'll change the way urban transport operates and lead to new low energy electric vehicles. This is what's different about our vehicle. It's low risk, low capex or low capital cost to set up, and it's got a good return on investment. It's all plastic. The vehicle you saw out there is carbon fibre composite glued together, like the Boeing Dreamliner. And it can be assembled quickly and put on the road. And the other beauty with it is with compliance, ADR compliance and ANCAP ratings, depending on what the ANCAP rating required, you can actually generate it if you need be. This was a business model that we put it up at Batumi, and we're currently in negotiations with a few other interests outside Australia and the East Asia region. So we manufacture Australia, export as a knockdown style pack. You can set up a pod assembly facility in any of the destination countries or target countries or any other state. It'll be a right-hand drive vehicle, and I probably didn't finish the story with Charles because we had that bit of an interruption, but Charles actually, after Will had a few negotiations, accepted our 15% offer, accepted a percentage on sale of each vehicle, and said you can have IP, right-hand drive, exclusive for the world markets. So he's automatically put us in a great export position. And he's hooked in a little bit because he's part of the business in Australia. Now this is the carbon fibre structure you can see outside, stronger than steel, and at this stage, if I show you the video, you'll see why we were pretty attracted to this vehicle. It doesn't look like the video is going to work. We got anyone smarter on technology than me here? It is a video, yes.
These days, is it that screen with the video?
Yep.
The AC was more expensive, more complex, ran at higher voltages. Definitely advantages, but
Okay, this is the assembly process. We always get there. You just need a good stick of glue and the pressed panels. And people get a bit nervous about glue in vehicles, but the Boeing Dreamliner is glued together. Most of the buses you see travelling around now, the skins on them are glued on, and many racing vehicles are just glued. And gluing actually is equivalent to or better than welding. There are currently 200 of these in beta test running around. We'll have our first vehicle out here in Australia for the Smart Energy event in Sydney next April. For those of you that might be interested in being first on the block with an Australian light commercial vehicle or a fishing car or whatever else, we've got 20 that you can book or reserve an order for at this event. There's only 100 for 2019. Anyway, you come by and have a chat with us later on. vehicle has been crash tested, but that doesn't help us. We've got to do the whole thing all over again. It'll cost us about 3 to 4 million with the right-hand drive engineering, plus the all the crash tests to get the ANCAP rating and everything else, or justify it. This is what governments are doing everywhere else. And as some of you, or many of you are probably aware, last year in China, 680,000 EVs sold. I think in Australia we're struggling to get 1,200 sold. These are our first 3 models. And various comments. Some people think they're great. Other people say, what the hell have you got there? And but the beauty of our models is that we can have them locally designed. As long as it doesn't impact on the ANCAP rating, we can do any appearance that's required.
And you've also got to think about the mini car as a lightweight.
And we think electric vehicles are the future for Asia and Australia. We know there's good, significant demand for Australian-made in Asia. We had an order for 60,000 last year from India. We said, we can't do it, we're not ready. And now that the Asia Development Bank's talking to us and a few other investors, we're hoping that we'll be able to manufacture a few for Australia and many more for overseas. And this is how the future as we see it, or this is how we're managing our business. We're offering every owner of the vehicle a cradle-to-grave solution. We've got a position set up now that when you buy the vehicle, whichever process you use, it's already sold for scrap and recycling.
Don't hang the battery box behind the rear wheels.
We've got what's called ELO. You've heard of Electric Light Orchestra? Well, this is embedded life opportunity ownership, and part of being with the ACE group is that it means that your mobility choices are personalised, particularly in a few years' time. You'll be able to really personalise your vehicle. And we're making e-mobility as simple as buying a mobile phone. And we're already having negotiations with, also offering with that mobile, your car or your vehicle, electric vehicle, an energy package. So, and it'll be a green energy package. Future trends we see, your transport, your iPad will be the key thing to your transport. It'll be your communicator and your transport management hub. It'll talk with other vehicles, and you'll see exactly what's going on. And really, I've just about finished talking. I hope I haven't put too many to sleep, but we're very keen to talk to you. We're very keen to make sure we've got a business operating in Australia, and we've certainly got lots of interest from overseas. And as Elon Musk said, we're running the most dangerous experiment in history right now, which is to see how much carbon dioxide the atmosphere can handle before there's an environmental catastrophe. Now, as a marine biologist, I'm involved in this because I see we're making a difference. And I know, when I was at James Cook Uni 50 years ago, we were talking about the impact of excess carbon dioxide in the atmosphere on the oceans. It was recognised then. Thank you.